Hello everyone. For my final project, I chose to talk about augmented reality in a K through 12 setting. I see the K through 12 classroom as an exciting place to be in the future, and that is why I chose this topic. So the objectives for this presentation are 5 in total. First off, what do the classrooms of the future look like? And second, what is augmented reality? The third thing I want to discuss is a sample application of augmented reality in a K through 12 setting. And the fourth thing I want to talk about are the benefits and some obstacles of augmented reality, and finally, some recommendations for change. The future looks exciting. Since children these days have so much technology just at their fingertips, it makes perfect sense that teachers will need to use technology to get to them. For that reason, these technologies are going to change the face of education. Students will be able to venture around. The classroom is no longer going to be static or in one room. The world is really their classroom. These technologies are lightweight, they're mobile, and they can be taken anywhere. So goodbye to the days of their traditional classroom where the teacher is standing up front and the students are all sitting in rows. Those kind of classrooms are probably not going to exist in the future. The new wave of technology is going to change the dynamic of what a classroom even looks like. What excites me personally the most is that learning is going to take on a whole new form as it's going to be more personalized. So the days of, a one-size-fits-all kind of education are going to be gone. What that means is that students will be able to study what they're more interested in. They'll be more motivated. They can think more creatively and critically. And learning analytics with all the technology is going to give teachers more explicit feedback as to strengths and weaknesses of each and every individual student, which will allow the teacher to give the student a more personalized learning experience. The two technologies that are really going to change the face of education are augmented reality and virtual reality. These two technologies are so strong as they give students the feeling, they simulate reality inside the classroom. And there's nothing stronger than actually trying something out or doing it yourself. So they're embedded in constructivist learning theories, which make them both very powerful. So for the purpose of this specific presentation, I want to talk about augmented reality. So what is AR? AR is a technology that adds a digital image or video to an environment in real time. There are two kinds of augmented reality. There is a location aware and a vision based. The location aware, if you've heard of the game Pokemon Go, is basically based on, there's a GPS tracker, so wherever a person might go, things might pop up on their screen while they're playing Pokemon. That is an example of a location-aware augmented form of reality. Another example for education would be if the teacher took the students outside, for example, to a playground and marked a specific tree or building with augmented reality. When they pass that tree, they'll get a notification on their cell phone, on their cell phones. I think this is also used very commonly in museums. So as you pass exhibits, you can get some form of augmented reality notification on your phone. Of course, if you have the app, which will explain in further detail more information about the exhibit or the portrait or whatever it is that you're looking at. Vision-based augmented reality is more like a QR code kind of thing, where you have an application on your phone and you scan a barcode of sorts, and a new dimension will pop up on your cell phone screen. Obviously cell phone or iPad, your mobile technology. So what would happen is that, for example, you might have a static book, just regular book. You take your cell phone out, you scan the QR code, and you might have a video, or there might be a better image with maybe 3D enhancements where you can kind of rotate and look at. The options are limitless. So, how can augmented reality enhance or improve foreign language practices? The truth is, I'm a foreign language instructor, and that is what I do. I teach foreign languages. I specifically teach English as a second language. That's what I do here at Into USF. Or I teach Arabic as a foreign language, which is what I used to do at the University of Pittsburgh. So, when you teach a foreign language, one of the most important characteristics of teaching a foreign language is interaction. The more you use the language, the more you interact with the language, the more you're going to learn. So I was very interested in the application of augmented reality in foreign language education. So how can a technology like augmented reality, which leans itself towards interaction a little more naturally, how can that be applied and used in the foreign language classroom? So for the purpose of this presentation, I wanted to choose something that I frequently use in my classes. So I use the PACE model. The PACE model is a model that was created by Dr. Adair, Hawk, and Dr. Donato. And what it is a cool way to teach grammar through storytelling. And this is something that I use personally frequently in my classes. So how could I add, for example, augmented reality to an activity that I commonly use or commonly do? So before I start and explain to you how I did that, I want to give you a little bit of background on what the PACE model is. The PACE model is an acronym. P stands for presentation, A is for attention, C is for co-construction, and E is for extension. Presentation part is during the presentation stage, the instructor basically fronts the class and tells a story. If you can see these little slides or pictures on the right, those are basically slides. And so usually a teacher will use a slideshow and tell or narrate a story. The story is told in 3 different ways. So after the students understand the meaning of the story, that's when we can take it a step deeper and go into the language of the story. So A is for attention, and what happens is the teacher rivets the student's attention to a grammatical function that is repeated in the story. So for example, if the teacher was telling a story like, I don't know, the 3 Little Pigs, for example, and let's say in that story there was a lot of simple past usage. The simple past was used in multiple ways. So the teacher might say, okay, now that we understand the story, let's look at the language. Do you notice this function? And that's where we go on to the next stage, which is co-construction. So after the students notice the grammar, they notice that the simple past was used, that's when we start talking, the teacher and the student have a dialogue and they co-construct the language together. So they have a conversation. Why did the character use the simple past? When is a simple past used? What does it look like? What is the function? What is the form? So a dialogue about the grammar happens. And finally, the extension stage is when the teacher gives the students an extra activity that will allow students to practice what they've just learned. So that's a brief overview of the PACE model. So how can I personally use augmented reality to enhance my teaching practices using the PACE model? So I thought a cool way to do that would be to take these little squares that are here, instead of fronting the class and telling the story myself, I could post these slides on a wall and have some kind of augmented reality connected to them. So they could be videos, they could be images, there could be maybe vocabulary word pop-ups and stuff like that. So I would enhance these images and post them on the wall. Students in groups could come over and go slide by slide to get the full story. Since they'll be working in groups, they can interact together, they can interact with the actual content. So I have not implemented this idea, however, I feel like it could work. So that is basically one way we can use augmented reality in a foreign language classroom, and this could be used in a K through 12 setting, even at the university level. It's used in higher education too. Some of the benefits of augmented reality are interaction, right? So although it might be a little bit different because as the story is being told by the instructor, there could be room for interaction there. But since they're also working in groups, it would still also have that interaction feature. So basically, augmented reality is a really cool way for students to be able to interact with each other and actually with the software, with the text, with the content. Benefits, another benefit is that it's challenging. It's far more challenging for them to try to figure out the story on their own rather than having, just watching the teacher tell the story. So another advantage of AR is the ability to create challenges and which will enhance students' problem solving skills. A third benefit is the mobility, just the general mobility of the technology. They can take their cell phones everywhere and be able to, move around, use their bodies, which is a lot better than just sitting down and being passive recipients of information. Some of the possible challenges and obstacles of augmented reality, I think the most important obstacle is that the roles of the teachers and the students are going to change. This is quite significant because the traditional model of education is the teacher is the all-knowing, the expert, and the student is the recipient of knowledge. With augmented reality and other virtual technologies, that role is going to change. The teacher is no longer going to be the sage on the stage, but rather the guide on the side. That means students are going to have take more ownership of their own knowledge and of their own learning, take the responsibility of their own learning. And the teachers are going to have to be more of a guide rather than the all-knowing person who knows everything. With all the information that is available to students, it's impossible for the teacher to keep up with everything. So for that reason, that is a big challenge. I personally have tried something similar in my classes where I ask my students to be more responsible for their learning. I'll give them a project and give them less, my role turns into guide instead of instructor. And my students personally are from all over the world, and they find that very challenging, especially since they're coming from countries from all over. They don't seem to like it when the teacher is no longer spoon-feeding them information. So I feel like that is a possible challenge. It might be the biggest challenge that we're going to face in the classroom. Another issue is that most schools, or a lot of schools, just might not be ready for change. There just might be a general resistance to technology and change. Teachers might not know how to use the technology. They might be resistant to it. There might not be finances. A lot of teachers have been doing the same thing for so long that they just might not want to change. So those are the two obstacles that I can foresee that might create a bit of issues moving forward. Some of my recommendations for change are an early curriculum change. That would be the first one. So obviously when students start with this kind of curriculum early, then they kind of just, survive with it. They learn it, they move on, they're used to it, it becomes the new norm. But what about the students that are not in kindergarten? What about the students that are maybe now in high school? How can we add elements of these kind of technologies in the classes now? So I think the second most important recommendation that I have is evolution, not revolution. We don't want to just get up and just kind of delete everything that we have currently. We don't want to start from scratch. We want to use what we have, but enhance it using technology. So evolution, not revolution. For example, my example of the PACE model. The PACE model is a great model. It works. I tried it. It's wonderful. So we don't want to erase that model and start it all over again. No, but how can I add technology to make that model even better? So that's what I mean by evolution, not revolution. There are also 6 factors that are recommended by Groff and Musa to overcome innovation obstacles. The 6 factors are a well-rounded approach. So you've got research and policy factors, you've got to make sure your teachers are on board, students, the district and school factors, you've got technology, the project itself, the assignments, and then you have the technology itself. All of those things have to come together in order to overcome an innovation obstacle. So it's not enough for you to change your curriculum, for example, and add technology if the teachers are not on board. Or if you do both of those and then the school district is not on board, or parents don't see the benefit of it. So it's important that whenever an innovation occurs or you're planning on innovating, that all of these elements together are involved and improved and notified, and the plan is all inclusive. Another recommendation is that for teachers that kind of want to start slow and want to start implementing technology in their classes, the first tip is to just explore. Don't be afraid to experiment. Try it. Augmented reality is fairly simple to use. Try it out. See if it works. Go into the classroom and give it a try. If you're nervous, if you're scared, another piece of advice would be to collaborate with someone. So find another teacher that wants to also add some more technology to the class, and then the two of you can work together. When there is another person with you, it kind of eases the fear and the stress. The third piece of advice that I have for teachers that want to try adding technology, and that would be just talk to the educational technologist at your school. Lucky for us, there should be an education technologist at every school, and talk to that person and see how they can help you with any troubleshooting issues you might have. They might be able to give you some tips and pointers on how to enhance the experience. So keep them on board, and that will also help. So that kind of wraps up what I wanted to talk to you today about. I went over the classrooms of the future and how exciting they look. We talked about what AR is, the different kinds of AR. We talked about an application of AR using the PACE model. And we talked about a few benefits and obstacles that might happen while we use AR in the future, and a few recommendations for implementation and for changing the current systems. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions or concerns. Thanks a lot.